I refined my pumpkin bread recipe somewhat. I think I must have an old pumpkin bread video. But now what I do half pumpkin, half banana bread. And that's because sometimes you have too many bananas, and you have to find a way to use them. You don't need to do it as half banana, half pumpkin, but also sometimes you don't have a full cup of pumpkin. Like right now, it's a half a cup or something. So it's good to be able to use this recipe when it's appropriate. So I've also changed a little bit because I'm working now. I almost never work during pumpkin season, but I am. So I make slightly more because this is what I eat for lunch at work. So I go for 2.5 cups now of flour. Could maybe do more, but I don't know if the recipe would handle it. Right now it's kind of on the borderline of being enough. Like maybe 2 3/4 cups or something, but then it gets complicated once you get into fractions. This is actually a little extra right now, so we'll see. I'll edge my way up towards a higher amount and see if I can handle it. Let's see. You gotta get your sugar. And that I usually do half a cup. I didn't used to measure the sugar, but half a cup works out. Now that I use I'm going to take this little one out anyway, I might as well use it. I guess the camera still breaks. That time it broke. Right, it was all the sugar dust was coming up. I don't know. I guess you're not supposed to breathe that in, but who knows. Maybe it doesn't matter. So here's my cinnamon. I've also standardized the spices. This is what working does to you. You standardize everything, you get very serious. So this is a half teaspoon. You kind of get it in here and get a little less than a half teaspoon, and then you do it again because I use my normal teaspoon to serve coffee, so I can't use it for this without having to wash it or whatever. Anyway, it's easier to just do 2 of those. Then you get, I didn't buy cloves. Usually I use cloves for this, but I found that allspice was cheaper, so I use allspice now, even though allspice tastes like nutmeg. So what I do is I put about half of this allspice, and again I do a little bit less than a full thing, so that's not a full half, but that's okay. And then the rest of it is nutmeg, which comes out a lot slower. Alright. So that's how you flavor it. And then another thing I never used to measure, I would measure it for biscuits, but not for pumpkin bread. Because for whatever reason you can use less of this for pumpkin bread. So again, I use 1 teaspoon. And that's all the dry ingredients. Where's my mixer? So you stir this up, and it looks kind of pleasant because all the brown spices kind of make it look like it'll taste good eventually, which is not something you get with biscuits. That's one advantage this recipe has, but it costs more because of all the spices. Spices are like $60 per pound or something. I usually try to stick to $2 per pound for my food, so this is something of a luxury. Eventually, it's a good winter food. Once it's summer, I won't mind eating biscuits. Or maybe I'll just make banana bread, who knows. Okay, so this is the complicated part, because now you've got wet ingredients, and they don't always act the way you would suppose they would. Like you've got I don't know, liquid's unpredictable. So this one, yeah, I kind of tried to open it, so it's a little bit messed up. I've got to, let's see. Yeah, if you get like a weird thing like this, you can just cut it off. Yeah, you want to make sure the banana's pretty ripe. So this is good enough, doesn't need to be anything crazy. Okay, now, well, I used to have a fork. I haven't fully adjusted to here's the fork. Yeah, you see it's, because I don't use this when I make pumpkin bread. So yeah, before you start mashing that up, you want to get the egg. Now I use eggs. I realized eggs can actually be used as a substitute for butter. Eggs are healthy. I think they cost less than butter. And they're protein. And also, when you got eggs, if you like stick your finger in here, you can get a little bit more out. So don't waste your egg whites. That's like the best part of the egg, I guess. Actually, when I used to eat eggs, I'd only eat the yolk. Of course, the downside is when you get a little bit of egg white on your fingers. But it's alright. So yeah, now this is kind of difficult. I don't know why people, when I first made pumpkin bread, I remember reading you're supposed to use a fork to do this. And it kind of makes sense, but this fork doesn't really fit in this container. I use this because I'm going to use it to measure the pumpkin. I figure there's no use in dirtying up another container just to do this. Oh man. Yeah, I gotta use two hands. Wait a second. That's too big. Alright. So you kind of have to like hold it so that you can smash it against the edge like this. That's the best way to get at a banana. And the egg helps because the egg gets in there and makes everything a bit more moist. And then you also beat the egg, just like in the background of your primary goal here. So you're doing two things at once. Now it doesn't really matter to what extent the banana gets mashed. You just want it to be pretty even because you're going to like stir it all together and stuff, and you don't want it to be too chunky. Or maybe you do. I don't know. Okay, so I personally don't care for banana chunks. If I was using more banana, then I would, but right now I feel like I'm just using enough for it to cover the whole bread, and I can't spare extra for chunkiness. That's a luxury. Okay. So then you just kind of do that. Yeah, it's still a bit chunky, but who cares? That's good enough. And now you go and get, I'm just getting it out of the fridge. Pumpkin, you gotta watch out because pumpkin will go bad if you leave it in the fridge too long. This I think is still good, but let's see, hopefully this whole thing is a half cup. Alright, it's going to be a little bit over a half cup, but that doesn't matter. It's not worth saving this little bit. It'll just go bad anyway by the time I make another batch. Luckily, you can make pumpkin bread with pumpkin that's starting to go bad. It doesn't really affect it. But once it starts to get like white and gooey, that's too much. You really can't eat that without suffering a little bit. So yeah, this is a little bit too much, but I used a little too much flour, so it's all good. Well. Okay, wait, I can't leave stuff in there. Yeah, it's kind of a bit messy. This is what I don't like about the wet ingredients. They really demand an extra skill that dry ingredients don't demand of you. But alright, that'll do. So now, usually you don't even need to use milk, especially now because I used a little bit extra of it. But you should this should be moist enough as is. It'll take a while to mix it and then to put it in the pot, so I'll just take a little break here. Alright, so yeah, it's in the thing now. It'll be in here at 350, 40 or 50 minutes maybe, I don't know. I don't time it, but so what I'm doing now is trying a new recipe that I've never done before. I got this cabbage here. I usually prefer purple cabbage, but I work in Brooklyn now, and it turns out green cabbage at least, is super cheap. 29 cents a pound. I found this in a supermarket in Brooklyn on my lunch break. That's an incredible price for anything, let alone something that is pretty healthy and that I generally like. So, we're going to make roast cabbage wedges, which I looked it up. It's a real recipe. I didn't write it down. That's alright. Okay. This is going to be a kind of small example of it because I've never done it before. And I don't like green cabbage all that much. I'm trying to find a way to cook it. It's got a weird, like, skunky flavor that the purple cabbage doesn't have, so I'm trying to find a way to minimize that flavor. I don't know if this particular method of cooking is the way to do it. So you gotta peel off just the very outer one, because this isn't like a real cabbage leaf or something. But it's all floppy. Cabbage shouldn't be floppy, it should be, firm. It should crackle. Whereas this is just, whatever. Okay, so you've got this cabbage. You're supposed to cut out the middle, too. I don't know if you can see this. Oh, you can. Alright. So, yeah. It's all creamy, too. It's weird. It's like coleslaw. I guess that's why people use green cabbage for coleslaw. Or actually, I don't know if they do. I don't know much about coleslaw. Not a dish that I'm partial to. Yeah, it's kind of difficult to get this thing out, but alright. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, so I guess you can just put it on a baking sheet. I'm probably going to cook some asparagus too. Let's see. So here's the sheet. I'm supposed to cut it into wedges. I don't know if that's really necessary. Let's see. Yeah, wedges, I don't know. All the recipes seem to suggest wedges were the way to go. I could start doing it. Oh, it's falling apart. Yeah, cabbage is kind of a pain sometimes. I'll do some wedges and some other shapes or whatever. Yeah, this is all over the place. Okay. Maybe another idea. Since it's not going to stay in one shape, I'll just put a bunch of it in here. Or I'll put the loose bits in here. Because I'm doing these guys anyway, which I think... I don't know if the bottoms were taken off them already. No. Okay. So I'll have to do that too. It's a shame to take this much off, but that's how you're supposed to do it. Okay, so, oh yeah, you need garlic. I was going to use garlic powder, but all the recipes said you're supposed to chop the garlic. And anyway, we've got this garlic right here, so why not? So you just chop this garlic up into little pieces and put it on top. You don't need to watch me do that. I don't know how much you need. I guess this one's not so good. It's a matter of personal taste. So yeah, I'll just chop it up and come back. So look at this garlic. It's all starting to go bad. I'm trying to use it all. It's got like this flap around it that you have to peel it off to get to the real garlic. But like that's still garlic. Like here it's a little rotten, but that I'd still eat. It's weird, I didn't know garlic did that when it started to go bad. But if you just cut out the rotten part, I'm sure the shell stuff can... Or not shell, it's not hard, it's soft. It's like an embryo. But yeah, I'm sure you can still eat it. I'm planning to eat it at least. So you probably don't need this much garlic really, but... I don't know, maybe I'll put some garlic on those guys as well. You can just watch the very end of this. I don't know if you can see it, but I can ruminate a little bit on cooking. Yeah, it's tough to use because I've got all this garlic powder, which is pretty cheap. It's a lot easier to use than this kind of garlic, so that's what I usually go for, which is why this stuff was neglected. And I have less time to cook because I'm working, so it's not like I have the luxury of chopping up garlic all the time. But, alright, so I don't know what other, you're supposed to put olive oil in here, which, I don't know, I hope that's enough. I'm hoping that baking it kind of gets rid of the skunk, because I don't think that the oil and the garlic's really going to do it. Okay, so this is good enough. Let me just wash my hand off. Oh, we've still got oil. Yeah, alright. So, let's see. Actually, I guess I'll just use my usual method for getting this good. It's hard to use oil to grease because it runs all over the place, but butter, like this, you can cover up a good area without using any excess. See, it's pretty simple. A little less simple one-handed, but simple enough. Okay, so there's the field of play now. So here's like the only wedge that I really have. Oh no, I got another one. And, well, alright, yeah, who knows? Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I really want to cook it in 2 different containers. Yeah, this shape stuff. Okay. Maybe I will just do it all on the cutting board, or the cookie sheet. So now, yeah, the garlic just kind of, oh, yeah, this is going to be a little more garlic than you really need. Ooh. Yeah, I'll probably save some of this garlic for something else, because this is excessive. But yeah, when it's in pieces, it doesn't spread nearly as nicely as it does as a powder. I much prefer garlic powder. Okay. And then you throw some oil on. Doesn't really matter how much. I don't want to use too much because then it'll just drip everywhere. I don't know. I don't use olive oil often enough to have any real idea of what constitutes a sensible amount. All right. So we'll see. This is what I'll do. And then I'll add those things. Okay. So for these, you gotta get out your compost container. And then, I don't know if I can do it one-handed. Yeah, they just kind of snap. But it's a darn shame, though, that so much of it comes off. I'd gladly eat part of that bottom stuff that I'm throwing away, but my mom wants these too. She doesn't tolerate the bottoms as well as I do. So, yeah, this is easy enough to do one-handed. It's like more than half that you're losing. I read online, it just, wherever it snaps, that's like automatically right. I don't know. But it's at least easy. Okay, so now you've got these things. Let me grease up the rest of it. I guess I should have done that at first. Usually I don't put asparagus directly on the sheet. I put it on some foil so that you can catch some of the extra oil, but I already started to use this sheet. So I guess I'm doing it this way. I don't know if I have a cooking video with asparagus yet. I don't cook it all that often. I don't cook it on my own, at least. I only cook it here. So I like asparagus. Which I think that probably, yeah, that's more room than I need, really. It's not a whole lot of it. So, yeah, you need some oil on this as well. And then I usually put cheese, but we don't have any Asiago. Finished it. And Asiago is what bakes best. Cheddar won't bake well. At least I don't think it will. It takes a surprisingly long time to cook these things. Alright, that's probably good enough. It's supposed to take like 40 minutes or something. which seems like too much. Anyway, we'll see how it turns out. We'll see if maybe I should have made more. But whatever. It's good. Okay, it's been a while. I think it's done now. Let's see. Oh, alright. That big stain is because I cooked a bit of steak over there. That's not from the cabbage. Okay. It does not stay together. It's got to be kind of changed around so that like this piece of all the what had a lot of garlic on it should be eaten with, oh man, with other garlicky pieces or non-garlicky pieces. Probably could use a little more oil. Doesn't look. Well, I don't know. These, I guess, are done. Let's see. Okay, might not be cooked all the way. It's a little on the hard side. So a bit on the thick side. Let me see, let's get these things off. These must be done. I'll put it back in just to cook a little bit more. I had a little bit of oil too. Oh, it's not bad though. Only issue is that it's too thick. I don't want a meaty bite when I bite my roasted cabbage. I want it to be a bit crisper. Don't know how possible it really is, but we'll see if it comes out better. If not, it's still not a bad recipe. Just gotta be refined. The pumpkin bread's good as always. So I just took it out. It's definitely better now. It's crisp, except for some of these inner ones, but the extra oil helped a lot. Yeah. Okay. So, you gotta leave it in for a while and use a good amount of oil. And yeah, this is pretty good. Good snack. I'll make it again.